I was researching how to become a world-renowned photographer watching YouTube videos, I thought I had stumbled onto the secret.
Bokeh.
And the bokeh is smooth and pleasing.
All the bokeh I can.
Bokeh broke, eh?
Bokeh in the background.
Tone it.
I wasn't sure what bokeh was, but I knew I needed to get my hands on some if I want it to be a success. I was under the false impression that bokeh meant background blur, but then I discovered that it's actually a Japanese term that describes the aesthetic quality of the blur. And the term tone, coined by Casey from Camera Conspiracies, describes the level of irritation that the background blur causes. I first discovered the benefits of bokeh and emphasizing the subject when I was watching Simone d'Entremont.
Blurry backgrounds are often prized for their ability to make highlights and shapes in the background smooth and soft looking, and by contrast make the subject in front of them pop. I use this in my wildlife photography to tame distracting elements in the background, like branches or grasses, while allowing my subject to really stand out.
And then I found out that not only did I need bokeh, it had to be perfectly round according to Tony Northrup.
And that brings me to another concept. The difference between good bokeh and bad bokeh. There's not really any such thing in an art between right and wrong and good and bad. It's all just intention, right? What do you actually want? Except for bokeh. Like, there's definitely bad bokeh. And round bokeh, perfectly round bokeh is definitely good. And square or hexagonal or octagonal bokeh is definitely bad, especially because it can get distracting, but also because it doesn't really mirror anything in the natural world. So photographers, videographers, we all strive for that super wide open circular bokeh.
But then I discovered from watching Simon's Utak that maybe there's some subjectivity when it comes to bokeh shapes.
It is interesting to see how different people react to bokeh images posted online. Some people like very smooth, unobtrusive bokeh, taken wide open, with few details in the blurs, but others think that over-smooth bokeh is overdone and looks unnatural. There's also some disagreement about bokeh shapes. Some professional lens reviewers seem to like smooth, round shapes in all images, right across the frame, while other people argue that cat's eyes can give a better sense of depth and perspective, and are more interesting.
One of the most surprising things in learning about bokeh is that the actual term was coined in 1997 in Photo Techniques magazine. It really does appear that our fascination with background blur is more of a modern trend that started in the digital photography era, and I found out that prior to the invention of digital photography, with film being more expensive and only getting 36 shots, people didn't take quite as many risks when it came to shallow depth of field and the possibility of missing focus. I also found out that before digital photography, faster lenses weren't quite as accessible. As I was researching the history of bokeh, I was really surprised to find out that many photographers in the past really treasured a deeper depth of field. Photographers like Ansel Adams started Group F64 back in 1932, and they really embraced stopping down their aperture because they really wanted realism. Their style was called straight photography, and they really wanted to capture what the human eye could see. If you notice in these photographs, they use a really deep depth of field, and they have everything in sharp focus. This one is Monolith, the face of Half Dome, Yosemite. This is from 1927 by Ansel Adams. This image was called Glacial Lily by Imogene Cunningham. This was taken in 1926. And this one by Edward Weston, taken in 1935, is Ranch, Old Big Sur Road. Even in cinematography, a deeper depth of field has often been prized. Back in 1941, Greg Tolan had to really use intense lighting to be able to close down the aperture to get the look that was achieved in Citizen Kane.
The shots in Kane were achieved by its cinematographer Greg Toland, who employed two related techniques. Wide-angle lenses, which expand the space on screen, and deep focus photography, which keeps everything in focus at the same time. The most famous example occurs early in Citizen Kane in Mrs. Kane's boarding house. Mrs. Kane, Charles Foster Kane's mother, is seated in the foreground with the banker, Thatcher, while his father is in the middle ground. In the background, we can see Charles play innocently in the snow, unaware that inside, his mother is preparing to send him away.
I've discovered that even some modern photographers don't consider bokeh to be critically important. Jimmy Chang said there might even be some downsides to concentrating so much on bokeh.
Bokeh is for lazy people. Bokeh can be very distracting. Yeah, you heard that right. And well, you can imagine if in a scene where you want to highlight the subject, about whatever they're doing, you blow out the background with lots of lovely bokeh balls. Problem is, if you have a lot of colors and also flashy lights behind, and once you've blown out the bokeh balls, and you can imagine that you're having the subject sitting in front of a very busy looking Christmas tree, have all these light flashing around, and imagine for the viewers what they're going to look at the subject or look at the lights. The lights will actually draws a lot of attention away from this subject.
I know that shallow depth of field in filmmaking can really be used in storytelling and help to draw attention to the character, but I have noticed it can be a little disorienting. In the 1985 version of Anne of Green Gables, they stop down a bit and you can see more of this beautiful tree-lined path. In the 2017 version, Anne with an E, they use a more shallow depth of field and you get so much beautiful bokeh, but I'm not sure if I prefer it. I really do think I might prefer having more of the path in focus. Emily from Micro Foreign Nerds brings up such a good point about bringing some context into your photography by seeing a bit of the background.
Let me talk about background blur, because this is a hill I will die on, ladies and gentlemen. One of the main criticisms for the long lens is, of course, depth of field and bokeh and creamy backgrounds, all that stuff. Right, so if I see a bird photo and the background is just completely green mush, it's great, you've isolated the subject, it looks great, but there's no context. That could be in a studio. If you have a slightly less shallow depth of field and you still get the lovely bokeh and the background's nice, but you get a little bit of context, you might be able to make out that it's a tree or whatever. For my taste, I prefer my wildlife photography to have a little bit more context.
One of the main reasons I think bokeh is so popular in the modern era is because of the invention of social media. So if a photographer is able to achieve a really cool bokeh effect and it gets shared online, there's so many other photographers that want to replicate it. Besides social media and technological advancements, I think there's a whole other reason why bokeh is so popular nowadays. Casey from Camera Conspiracies definitely touched on one of the main reasons we embrace the blur. We might be trying to obscure reality.
Reminds me of a shot I took last December when I was invited over to the Northrop's house to bury the hatchet. They were like, that tonne thing, it's fine. We can talk about it. We'll work something out. We forgive you. And I was like, okay, I'll come over. Maybe I'll take a picture of you guys. I'm a portrait photographer. Back in the day, let me flatter you. So he was like, okay, I'll stand in front of my Christmas tree lights. And I was like, okay, I'll take this at 1.4, I guess. And he was like, 1.4? What do you, you're joking, right? I was like, oh, sorry, it's all I have. And he's like, let me get you a lens. And he brought me out a Zeiss 91mm Tony 0.6. I was like, Tony, only one of your eyes is going to be in focus, like maybe 2 lashes. He was like, take the shot, okay? I need a blurry background. I need this. You have no idea. When I was a child, I was walking, and there were things behind me I didn't want to see. People were chasing me home from school. I just wanted to be home and eat my sandwiches. And from now on, I will blur out whatever is behind me, because I do not need that right now.
I know this is subjective, but life in the modern era definitely doesn't feel as aesthetically pleasing as it used to. Look at how much more beautiful the architecture used to be in Kansas City, Missouri. And now look at it. Nowadays, we might have a reason to hide our background. I really did think bokeh was the key to becoming a celebrated photographer. But now I'm starting to realize, just like anything, it has its advantages and disadvantages, and its use is quite subjective. And I have learned that if you want to isolate your subject, there are actually other compositional tools you can use, such as lighting and framing. Just look at how Richard Avedon highlights his subject. If you like this video, give it a like, consider subscribing for more camera-related content from a newbie like me. God bless.